Hey, good morning. Good morning, Lori and Lori. Hope you're both off to a great day. It's Tuesday. Lori, I think that makes this Thanksgiving Eve for the week. So we'll just call it that. Thanksgiving Eve. Good morning, Tony. Tony, did I see right that you got a new pickup or something like that? Is that why it's going to be a great day? Because you got a new pickup? Morning, Roseanne. Good morning, Marilyn. Good to see you today. Glad you made it on. Morning, Cheryl. Morning, Simon. I just want to remind you, I've seen several of you, many of you actually, hop on to that to the Bible YouVersion's Bible app, which is exciting. And I've also seen several of you hop on to our. It's not ours, but it's the study that we're doing together. On the YouVersion Bible app called A Heart Full of Thanksgiving. It's a 3-day plan. And I've seen that several of you are on there. I just want to continue to encourage you to do that. Next week we'll have another plan that we're starting, and I'll let you know when that happens. But if you found that Bible app, YouVersion's Bible app, that's awesome. It's the one apparently there's another Bible app. The YouVersion Bible app is the one that has the red tab at the bottom. So someone pointed that out to me yesterday. I think it was Joe. I had no idea that there was another one that looked similar, but it looks like it's that one. It's Holy Bible, and yeah, it's gonna be messed up. It's the one that says Holy Bible and has the red tab in the bottom. So I just want to encourage you to do that. It's been fun kind of interacting with people and seeing what they're learning and growing in this plan. So I want to urge you to continue to do that. So Cheryl said that Tony asked her to help him tuck in his new pickup last night. So good. I'm excited to see you post pictures. And I wouldn't be surprised if you came by Westway today. I don't know what your day looks like, but so anyway, so this morning we are going to read from Mark chapter 9. We've been reading through the Gospel of Mark for. Marilyn asks, do we do those Bible studies through Facebook? No, there's an app called the Bible app on your phone, and I think it would be good, Marilyn, if why don't we try and connect sometime today, and I'll talk. I'll talk with Joe, and one of us will try and get a hold of you today, and we'll walk you through how that plan works. And I'm sure Mike and I will talk about it today when we do our Tuesday Q&A. So someone we'll figure out a way to get a hold of you in that. So good morning to Bridget and Kendra. So we've been reading through the Gospel of Mark, I don't know, for the past several weeks now. Maybe even the past month. I'd have to go back and look. We've been reading through the Gospel of Mark. We're in Mark chapter 9 today. And what I encourage you all to do before and after this little bit of time is to read the entire chapter that we're in, so you can put all the pieces together of what's taking place. So yesterday we talked about Jesus healing the demon-possessed boy. Remember, he had come off the mountain with Peter, James, and John, gets to the bottom of the mountain. Everyone's arguing and fighting because the disciples couldn't cast out this demon from this boy. Why were Jesus, Peter, James, and John up on the mountain? Because Jesus took them up there. While they were up there, they saw Moses and Elijah. And as we talked last week, clearly demonstrating that Jesus is not Elijah or one of the prophets. He is a completely different category. Well, who is he? While they were up on the mountain, they heard the voice from the cloud come that said, "This is my dearly loved son, listen to him." So Jesus is not Elijah. He's not a prophet. According to the voice from the cloud, he is the Son of God. Okay, so Jesus is a completely different category. But that doesn't mean that the disciples still knew who he was. Right? They had an understanding, but they still don't know who he is. I think of our human relationships that we have, how we have perceptions and assumptions about who people really are, and then we learn more about them over time. I would guess, I want to say this, I would guess that we've been doing this for a while. March 17th, I think, is when we first started this, and a lot of the people who are on, who consistently watch this throughout the week, my guess is, in the 9 months now, 10 months, 9 months that we have been doing this, my guess is, for those of you who have consistently been on, and I don't mean every day, but consistently, for those of you who have been consistently on in the mornings, during the week, doing this time together, you probably have a different perception of who I am than someone who I've had very little interaction with. Does that make sense? You probably have a different understanding of who I am than people that I rarely spend time with. So those people still know who I am. Like, they might identify me as the lead pastor of Westway. They might identify me as a runner. They might identify me as husband to Ann, father to Katie, Nathan, and John. Like, they might identify me in lots of different ways. But that doesn't mean that they truly and fully understand who I am. And just because the disciples have been with Jesus, they have a fuller understanding of who Jesus is than other people that Jesus has been around. But they still don't know fully who he is. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're in Mark 9. We're just going to read a couple verses. Verses 30 to 32. Leaving that region, so Jesus has just healed this boy. Leaving that region, they traveled through Galilee. Jesus didn't want anyone to know he was there, for he wanted to spend more time with his disciples and teach them. He said to them, "The Son of Man is going to be betrayed into the hands of his enemies. He will be killed, but 3 days later he will rise from the dead." Okay, so we're going to stop there before we read verse 32. This is one of those times where Jesus is constantly telling his disciples who he is. And if you've been watching, over the last month as we've gone through the Gospel of Mark, I'm not saying anything new to you that you have not already heard. And maybe you're bored with that. But Jesus is consistently telling his disciples who he is. And as we've talked about for 9.5 chapters, Jesus is consistently reorienting their idea of who he is. He's always doing things that they think Jesus is one way, and he does something that makes him seem something else. Jesus is talking about something that makes him seem one way, and then he does something and it seems somewhere else. Jesus is talking about himself, and they're like, oh, we think we know who this guy is. And then he does something and completely changes their mindset of who he is. So again, so I didn't go back and do this today, but I think this is the third time in the Gospel of Mark that Jesus has told the disciples that he was going to be killed. The third time. Remember, well, it is. So in Mark chapter 8, he tells all the things, verse 31, Jesus began to tell them that the Son of Man must suffer many terrible things, be rejected, he would be killed, but 3 days later would rise from the dead. And what did Peter do? He takes him aside and he rebukes him. Remember that scene? We talked about that 2 weeks ago. Okay? And I think there was at least one other time where he tells them that he is going to die. So Jesus is constantly like, imagine all of the excitement that would have been around Jesus for a minute. Try and put yourself in the sandals of the disciples, especially Peter, James, and John. They had been up on this mountain with Jesus. And they heard a voice from God that said, This is my dearly loved son. Do whatever he says. Like you're gonna think that awesome things are gonna happen because the Messiah is here. And these are guys who would have known the Old Testament, and they would have known the promises of the Old Testament about how the Messiah was gonna heal them and cast out demons and deliver them and make them whole and all of these kinds of things. So there's like, they get excited just like we get excited. And Jesus here is constantly reminding them of what this is really all about. Jesus is constantly, he's not trying to be a downer, but he's trying to tell them, he's trying to keep their orientation straight, right? Like keep their orientation focused on what God has for them, and he's constantly telling them who he really is and what's really going to happen. He's always doing that. So what's their response? So imagine you come off the mountain and Jesus heals this person and like you're feeling good. So they leave. Jesus wanted to spend more time with his disciples and teach them. So he doesn't let anyone else know where they're going. He's not around other people. So he calls the disciples to himself. What does he say? The Son of Man is going to be betrayed into the hands of his enemies. He'll be killed, but 3 days later, he'll rise from the dead. He's constantly reminding the people, his disciples, of who he is. And we need this reminder too. You know, we've talked a lot about how the Gospel of Mark is ordered. And remember, that doesn't mean that I'm not saying these things didn't happen. But we've talked a lot about how the Gospel of Mark is ordered and how it's put together. And every so often we're getting these little reminders, right, of who Jesus is. I think it's so easy for us to get wrapped up in exciting and encouraging things that are happening from God. Maybe blessings. And forget that what Jesus came to do was to suffer a death for our sins and then be resurrected so that we might be resurrected. That's why Jesus came. Jesus did not come so that we would have a super fantastic life. I know what I said on Sunday. And some of you are like, well, John, that's not what you said on Sunday. What I said was, Jesus came to give us a rich and satisfying life on Sunday. And a rich and satisfying life through Jesus is a new life, is a resurrected life, is a redeemed life, is a life that's not caught in sin, but has found freedom from that sin. That's the rich and satisfying life. That's Psalm 23. That is, Jesus has set out all of these good gifts before us, all of this provision from himself. That's what this life is about. And just as the disciples needed to perpetually be reminded of who Jesus was and why Jesus came and what Jesus was going to accomplish and what they were going to get from this relationship with Jesus, we need to be reminded of that as well. We need to constantly be reorienting ourselves around God. I need it. I need to constantly be reorienting my life around the person of Jesus. Well, how did the disciples respond? Verse 32, they didn't understand what he was saying, however. This is crazy. This is the third time they've heard this. Right? I read this and I'm like, disciples, you're so stupid. Like, how can you be so dumb to not know this? You've heard, this is not the first time. This is not new information. And that's why I think we give the disciples far too much credit. And we've talked about that too. It's easy for us, and I know I really used to do this a lot, and maybe you do this now. It's easy for us to look back and say, man, if I had been with Jesus, like, my life is so hard right now, but if I had been one of Jesus's disciples, like, I would have this figured out. If I were to physically be able to walk with Jesus, right? If I were up on the mountain, well, how come, what if I went to the top of Scottsbluff? If I heard a voice from heaven that said, hey, Jesus is my son, do what he says, I would listen, right? Like, we say those kinds of things. We think those kinds of things. That we would be like how faithful we would be if those things would just happen to us. The disciples were right there and they just didn't get it. They didn't understand. And they were afraid to ask him what he meant. I want to encourage you a couple things today. Remember why Jesus came. Remember why he came. He did not come so that you would have your best life now. And I recognize that some of us are living our best life now. And this is Thanksgiving, so I'm working really hard to not make this a Thanksgiving message. But being thankful is good. We should do it all the time. We talked about that on Sunday. Like, I have a pretty good life. I just do. I would say my quality of life might be, right now, the best it's ever been. And I'm thankful for that. I'm grateful for that. But that's not why Jesus came. Jesus came so that he could pay the penalty for my sin and give me new life. So that's one of the things I want you to get today, is remember why Jesus came. Don't ever get caught in this cycle of thinking that Jesus came for something more than the new life he offers you through his death, burial, and resurrection. Don't ever forget that. And I would say the second thing is when you don't understand like what Jesus is doing, and like I don't know that we're going to be doing this a year from now. But what I want to do is I want to teach you how to read the Bible. When you don't understand what Jesus is saying, when you're reading the Bible, if there's something you don't understand, the second thing I want to encourage you on today is don't be afraid to ask him. Don't be afraid to ask. Ask him to reveal himself to you. Ask him to reveal his will to you. Ask him to reveal his heart for you. His desire for you. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask God what he meant. Don't live in this space where the disciples are. And again, like we elevate them so much. And it's so crazy because they just don't know. And I so just want you to see your need to be reminded for the identity of Jesus. And then to ask him when you don't understand. And that's what I'm going to pray about for you today. So let's do that right now. God, we are thankful for your word. We're thankful for your heart for us, that you don't desire to keep secrets from us. And that will be another thing we could talk about from this is Jesus didn't want his death and resurrection to be a surprise. You're not keeping secrets from us. We have your word. We have the Bible, and it tells us what we need to know. It's not a secret. It's not something we have to decode to understand. It's here. And like we've talked about so many times over the past month, help us to have eyes to see, ears to hear, and a mind to think. And beyond that, God, give us a heart that's open to you. Give us a desire that's open to you. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen. Well, thanks for joining today. I know we only covered 3 verses. Tomorrow we're going to cover more. For those of you who've been on here for months, read chapter 9 today. You know that. You know what I'm going to say. I want to encourage you to read chapter 9. See how each of these pieces fit together. Remember what happened before. And then as we read through the rest, you'll see what happens next. Right? We want to see how this all fits. Tomorrow we're going to I don't know that we're going to finish chapter 9. I just did not want to get into the next section today, honestly, because there's a big connecting point between the two, and I didn't want that to get lost. So tomorrow we will pick up at verse 33 in chapter 9. I want to encourage you to read chapter 9 today. Read it again tomorrow morning before we have our time together. I want to encourage you to find that YouVersion app on your phone. Like if you have an iPhone, it's in the Apple Store. If it's you have an Android, or I don't know that other phone thing. I think that's the Google Play Store. So look for the YouVersion Bible app. Download that. Join that Bible reading plan that we have going right now. It's been awesome. I love you guys. I'm praying with you and I'm praying for you. I'm excited. I'm excited for this week. It's Thanksgiving. We get to thank God in all circumstances. That's what we're going to talk about on Sunday. And I'm so thankful that we get to do this during the week. So I love you guys. Praying with you, praying for you. And I'll see you tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Mountain Time. See ya.